I never thought owning a helicopter would cause this much drama, especially not in a quiet suburban neighborhood. But here we are. It all started when I decided to land my small personal chopper on my own property. I mean, I've got the space, the permits, and I wasn't bothering anyone. Or so I thought. That's when the HOA, the homeowners association, stepped in with a warning that nearly made me laugh out loud. They threatened to tow my helicopter. Tow it. As if it was some rusty pickup truck left in the street. At first, I thought it was a joke. I even double-checked the letter just to be sure it wasn't some prank. But nope, it was real. Signed, sealed, and aggressively worded. According to them, I was violating neighborhood airspace and creating a public safety risk. They gave me 48 hours to remove the aircraft or face consequences. I tried to reason with them. I explained that I followed all local and FAA guidelines and reminded them this is the same neighborhood where people drive golf carts to pick up groceries. But logic didn't work. They just doubled down. So I decided, if they wanted to play hardball, I'd give them a landing they'd never forget. I picked the one place in the neighborhood where my chopper would definitely be noticed, the HOA. President's front lawn. Was it dramatic? Maybe. But it made a point. And trust me, what happened next took this feud to a whole new level. You won't believe how the HOA reacted, or how this stunt turned into something way bigger than I expected. Let's just say, I didn't just land a helicopter that day. I landed right in the middle of a battle I didn't see coming. Keep watching, because this is where things get wild. Let me rewind a bit and explain how this even became a thing. I've lived in this neighborhood for about 3 years. It's one of those planned communities where every lawn looks the same and everyone waves but never really talks. You know the type. I mostly kept to myself, didn't go to HOA meetings, paid my dues on time, just lived quietly. The helicopter? That came later. It's a 2-seater, lightweight, and I only use it a couple times a week, mostly for quick business trips or to avoid crazy traffic. It's fully legal, registered, and believe it or not, safer than some of the cars I see speeding through here. At first, neighbors were curious. A few even came by, asked questions, took pictures, and said it was the coolest thing they'd seen in the neighborhood. I thought maybe it would even bring people together. But I guess not everyone likes a little excitement. It wasn't long before I started getting weird looks, then anonymous complaints, and finally, the first warning letter from the HOA. They claimed I was lowering property values and disturbing the peace. Honestly, I think the HOA president just didn't like that I was doing something different. He's the kind of guy who measures grass length with a ruler and frowns if your trash bins are out 10 minutes past pickup. Still, I tried to play nice. I offered to meet with the board, even suggested building a small landing pad away from homes, totally within zoning rules. They shut it down immediately. That's when I realized this wasn't about safety or noise. It was about control. And that's when the threat to tow the helicopter came in. They gave me a deadline, and I gave them a surprise. But little did I know, landing it on the president's lawn would set off a chain reaction I couldn't stop. The moment I touched down on the HOA president's perfectly trimmed lawn, I knew there was no going back. It was early morning, quiet, with just enough fog to make it feel like a movie scene. I made sure everything was safe. No damage, no flying grass clippings, not even a bent sprinkler head. But within minutes, I saw his front door swing open. He stood there in a bathrobe, mouth wide open, holding a mug that read, "World's Best HOA President." I gave a polite wave. He didn't wave back. The next day, things escalated fast. I came home to find a notice duct taped to my front door, not in the mailbox, not mailed properly, but slapped right on the glass like some angry teenager left it. It said I was facing immediate legal action and possible fines in excess of $25,000 for trespassing and unauthorized aircraft activity. My lawyer laughed when he read it, but warned me they were serious about dragging this out. That's when the rumors started flying around the neighborhood. One lady swore I was filming everyone from above. Another claimed I was running some kind of underground air taxi service. A guy 3 houses down, who's never said a word to me before, suddenly cornered me about property taxes going up because of aviation stuff. It was wild. But the strangest part? Some neighbors started secretly rooting for me. A few of them admitted they were tired of the HOA's strict rules. One guy told me he got fined for having a flag that was too bright. Another got written, "Up for a bird feeder." Apparently, I wasn't the only one fed up. Still, none of that made what was coming any easier. Behind the scenes, the HOA wasn't just angry. They were organizing. I started seeing board members meeting late into the night, cars parked outside each other's homes, and weirdly specific posts showing up on the community app. Something was definitely brewing, and I had no idea just how far they were willing to go. It all came to a head one Saturday morning. I woke up to find a drone hovering over my backyard, just sitting there, buzzing like a giant mechanical mosquito. At first, I thought it was a kid playing around, but then I noticed it wasn't moving, just aimed straight at my landing zone. I walked out to confront it, but it zipped away like it knew it had been caught. That's when I realized this wasn't just about rules anymore. It was personal. The HOA was watching me, and not just through letters and threats. They were actively trying to catch me slipping. Later that day, I got a certified letter, hand-delivered this time, saying the HOA had voted to file an injunction against me. They were officially trying to ban me from operating any aircraft of any kind within the neighborhood limits. They even cited old bylaws from the 90s that had nothing to do with aviation. It felt like they were grasping at straws, but they were determined to win. I had 7 days to respond or face legal action. Meanwhile, the tension in the neighborhood was thick. Some neighbors avoided me completely. Others whispered their support but were clearly afraid of getting involved. One even said the president threatened to fine anyone who backed me up publicly. It was turning into something bigger than just a helicopter. It felt like a battle over control, freedom, and whether the HOA could bully someone into silence. That week, I barely slept. Every time I heard a car slow down outside, I looked out the window. Every time a notification popped up on the community app, I braced myself for another attack. Then, 2 days before the hearing, someone left a note in my mailbox. No return address, just a typed message that said, "They're planning something big. Watch your step." That's when I knew the real showdown was just around the corner. The note in my mailbox shook me more than I expected. It wasn't just the message. It was how quietly it had been delivered. No envelope, no name, no cameras catching anything. Just a single typed warning that someone on the inside knew something I didn't. And with the HOA already circling like sharks, the idea that something bigger was coming? That messed with my head. 2 days later, I found out exactly what they meant. I got a call from a friend who works at the city's zoning department. He sounded uncomfortable, like he wasn't sure if he should even be telling me this. Apparently, the HOA president had filed a formal complaint claiming that my entire property, not just the helipad, was in violation of outdated zoning rules. Not only that, but they were pushing for the city to rezone our section of the neighborhood to restrict all non-traditional transport vehicles, which somehow included helicopters, drones, golf carts, and even electric scooters. If that passed, it wouldn't just affect me. It would hit dozens of homeowners, some who used mobility scooters, others with delivery drones for their businesses. Suddenly, this wasn't just a petty feud about one guy and a helicopter. The HOA was trying to reshape the entire neighborhood to shut me down. That's when everything started unraveling. People who had stayed quiet before were suddenly furious. My inbox blew up with neighbors who had no idea what the board was doing behind closed doors. One woman said her petition to build a wheelchair ramp was denied for aesthetic reasons, something she never thought to question until now. Another guy admitted his electric golf cart was randomly ticketed by a board member last week. It was all connected, and it was all happening fast. That's when I realized the HOA wasn't just after me anymore. They were trying to make an example out of me. And if I didn't do something soon, it might be too late for all of us. The night before the zoning meeting, I got a knock at the door. Not a text, not a call. An actual knock. When I opened it, I found one of the HOA board members standing there, looking nervous. She glanced over her shoulder before stepping inside. What she told me blew the lid off everything. Turns out the president had been bypassing votes, forging approval letters, and pressuring board members into signing off on new rules without letting the community see them. The rezoning push wasn't just about me. It was part of a bigger plan to control every detail of the neighborhood, from who could renovate their house to what tech people could use. And the cherry on top? He'd already bought up a plot of land nearby, planning to develop a private community where he'd run everything from day one. Armed with emails, documents, and her testimony, I went to the meeting the next day ready for war. What started as a typical HOA gathering quickly turned into a packed room of angry, confused, and fed-up neighbors. I waited until the president stood to present the new zoning push, reading it like it was just another boring policy change. And then I stepped forward and asked for the floor. One by one, I laid out the truth. The forged signatures, the backdoor meetings, the rezoning scheme. I even had a neighbor live stream it on the community app. At first, the board looked stunned. Then the room erupted. People who had never spoken up before suddenly had stories, complaints, proof of the president's shady behavior. By the time the meeting ended, the board had voted to suspend him pending investigation. The rezoning plan was killed on the spot. It felt like a win. But just as I was about to leave, someone handed me an envelope. No name, no return address. Inside was a photo of my helicopter, taken from high above. On the back, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "This isn't over." I stood there holding that photo, heart pounding, wondering who took it and what it meant. But after everything that had happened, I wasn't scared, just alert. The message was clear. Someone still had it out for me. But this time, I wasn't standing alone. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood started to change. The suspended HOA president was replaced by a temporary committee made up of actual residents, people who wanted fairness, not control. The new board started reviewing past complaints, reversing ridiculous fines, and asking for community input before making decisions. For the first time since I moved in, people were actually talking to each other, not just nodding at the mailbox. The helicopter, still there, still flying, legally and safely. I even gave a few neighbors short rides, and we used it to film a community video about local events. What started as a fight turned into something bigger, a conversation about personal freedom, outdated rules, and what it really means to be a good neighbor. As for the photo, I never found out who sent it. Maybe it was someone still loyal to the old president. Maybe just a weird prank. Either way, I keep it in my drawer, a reminder that even in the quietest neighborhoods, things aren't always as calm as they seem. Looking back, it wasn't about the helicopter at all. It was about standing up when something doesn't feel right, even if it means landing a little outside the lines. And if there's one thing I've learned through all this, sometimes the only way to rise above the noise is to take flight. Thanks for watching. And yeah, next time you hear a helicopter overhead, it might just be me.